In the last video, we learned how to texture bake the roughness of this procedural material, and today we'll be baking a similar type of map called a gloss map. A gloss map is basically an inverted roughness map and is used in some other 3D softwares. Since Blender works with roughness instead of gloss, we would use roughness maps in Blender. But sometimes we would want to turn our procedural material into a gloss map, so we can use that map in softwares which use gloss instead of roughness. This video works as a standalone follow along, so no need to watch the last episodes. If you do, however, want to follow along from one of the last tutorials, you can skip to the timestamp on the screen just now, since you already have your UV set up. For everyone else though, I'm just going to get started by left clicking my cube to select it and pressing X to delete. Then I'll press Shift A and under Mesh I'll left click cube, and now we'll start our UV from scratch. I'll drag out the top left hand corner, and this will allow me to drag out another 3D viewport, which I'm going to change to the UV editor. I'm also going to change my timeline to the shader editor, and I'm going to left click this drop down and choose the prismarine material. I'll press tab on the keyboard to enter edit mode, and if I zoom out of my UV editor, you can see we have our default cube UV. Underneath you can see the roughness texture that I baked in another one of these tutorials. Don't worry if you don't have this underneath, because we don't need it for the tutorial. I'll press A to select everything in my 3D viewport, U, and then I'll choose Smart UV Project. Then I'll change my island margin to 0.03 to match the other bakes that I've done previously. If you want something a bit smaller, you can choose 0.01. Keep in mind though, you'll need to keep the island margin the same for all your bakes. Then I'll just press OK, and now you can see we've got our new UV unwrap in the UV editor. I drag up my shader editor a bit more, and we're not going to need this texture here which we used in the last tutorial, so I'm just going to left click and drag these two nodes and press X to delete them. If you're starting this tutorial from the download in the description below, you won't need to do this because it will already be plugged in, but for you guys following from the roughness tutorial, you'll need to plug the roughness back in. Now I'm going to press Shift A and I'm going to create the image texture to bake our gloss map onto. So under texture, I'll left click image texture. I'll then press plus new, and I'm going to change the name to prismarine gloss. Then I'm going to left click the width, drag my mouse down 1, select the end of the number, press the shift key, the 8 key, which will create an asterisk or a star sign, which works as a multiplier, and then 2, and I'll times both the numbers by 2, giving me a nice 2K texture. You can also type in these numbers manually. I'll uncheck the alpha button and press OK. Here in our UV editor, you can see the image has been added, and it's just a plain black image just now. I'll change my color space to non-color. Now that's done, we can set up the bake settings. In my render properties panel, I'm going to make sure I'm in cycles, since texture baking is a cycles feature. Under the render sampling, I'm going to change my max samples to 10, since you don't need a high render sample for baking in Blender. Then under bake, I'm going to change my bake type to roughness, since it's the roughness channel we'll be baking from. And I'm going to set my margin to 8 pixels. Now if we were to press bake just now, we would just get a roughness map, and we want a gloss map, which if you remember, as I mentioned in the beginning, is essentially an inverted roughness map. So I'm going to press Shift A and I'm going to left click the search bar and search for invert. In older versions of Blender, it'll just be called the invert node, and in this version, which is Blender 3.6, it'll be called invert color. So left click that and plug it in between these color ramp, which I'm using for my roughness, and the roughness shader parameter. Now that's done, I'll left click my prismarine gloss texture and I'll just press bake so we can start baking our gloss texture. Now our bake is finished, you can see it here in our UV editor, and you'll notice it is essentially got the opposite color scheme from the roughness map, as it should be. Now all we need to do is save this image. So where it says the image and the star icon indicating it needs to be saved, I'll press image and choose save as, and then I'll choose a location to save my file. It's really important that you save the image this way, because the image file won't be saved when you save the Blender file. Meaning, if you were to save and close your Blender file, the image would be lost if you didn't save it by left clicking image and pressing save as. So make sure to do that. And there we have it. Now if someone asks you to bake your procedural Blender texture into a gloss file, or if you want to use your procedural material in a software that uses gloss maps, now you know how to do it. If you ever get a gloss texture which you need to use in Blender, you can just plug it into the roughness and put an invert node in between. Don't forget to press Shift A, then under input, add a texture coordinate and plug your UV into your image texture. But yeah, with that, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching, and if you did enjoy the video, please make sure to like the video and share it with someone who you think would find it useful. Also, feel free to ask any questions if you have any, since gloss maps can confuse people, which is perfectly normal and part of the learning process. Also, I have 2 free PDFs in the description below, one which will teach you about maps in Blender and the different kinds you get, and another one which will cover how to bake all these different ones, which is what we've been doing today. Thank you again, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take care.